As always, we'll start with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll go right into questions. So, Coach, take it away.
Thank you, Carter. It's a little peculiar. It is National Signing Day, and we're sitting here and we don't have anyone to talk about as new signees, which is pretty unusual for the first Wednesday in February. But I guess that's again shows how how important it was that we got all 21 to sign in mid-December. We were able to add the 3 transfers that took us to our number of 24, and it's great to have those guys. The 3 transfers already on campus, going through our off-season program. I think there will be counted as about 10 or 12 that of the 21 class that will join us in the summer, and it'll be great to get them here. And I do think it's important to note that we are not whole at 85. I think this is an issue in college football. We're not whole at 85, and that's counting. I think we have 8 super seniors that given the chance, chose to come back to Miami this year, what that's taking away is simply taking away the opportunity for somebody to go to school somewhere. And I do think there are high school students that are feeling the crunch of not having the same opportunities because we are all bound by the 25 initials on any given year. And I do hope that's something that does change, because it's easy to do the math. If we're just one of schools and 25 doesn't get us to 85, that's simply educational opportunities that are being taken away from young men. So, and we've not had many go in the transfer portal. We've got Pat Joyner went to Utah State. Nikosi and Tate. Even though Nikosi's back, but he'll transfer after the spring after he graduates. So, with not a lot of attrition, which has been kind of the concern about adding initials, we've not had a lot of attrition, and yet we're still, after signing a full class last year and a full class this year, we're still not at 85. So, makes it a weird signing day. Probably have more new coaches to talk about, the new players. Today was kind of a cool day here in the building. We were able to meet with our players on some offense and defensive meetings. Today's the first day with the defense all together that I was able to get in front of them and have our entire new defensive staff introduced. And also today's the day that I was able to tell them that I'll be running the defense for the 2021 season, which definitely has me excited, has me fired up, and excited to work with this staff. Got some really outstanding teachers, some outstanding men, and I think it's great for our players to, I think we'll have great growth. I think it'll be good for everybody to get out of their comfort zone. We've got some great experience on the staff, and I'm really excited to work with them and get back to playing defense the way that we ought to play defense at the University of Miami. So with that, I'll open up for any type of questions.
Great. Thanks, Coach. We'll start with Chris Stock from Inside the U. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Coach. I was just curious if you could give an update on De'Aaron King, how he's doing, what he's kind of been up to since the injury, and also an update with Jalen Knighton. Do you expect him in spring ball? And then I have a quick follow, if I could.
Yeah, Derek, I was chatting with him today. I mean, obviously he's so eager to get back. I mean, it's just the way that he is, and anything he's allowed to do, he's doing. He's working hard in his rehab. Everything's been very encouraging so far. And again, it's all about him just meeting his benchmarks. But everything right now has been very encouraging. Jalen, I do believe, is on track for being available for spring practice. We've pushed our spring practice back a couple of weeks. We're starting in mid-March, which is a little bit different than what we would normally start. We're making a huge emphasis in our off-season program of getting our team stronger, taking a full 7 weeks of lifting to really change this program. When we look back, we thought we were hampered a year ago a little bit by the pandemic, and some of our guys suffered without a full off-season program, either really what we were able to get last February, and then we cut off first week of March. We're not really back in the building, and even the way we had to lift, we just didn't feel like we made the strength gains in the year 2020 that we need to. So pushing that back will hopefully allow a guy like Jalen even more time to get well.
And just quickly, a lot of guys in the offseason made announcements that they would return, seniors, juniors, and whatnot. Amari Carter didn't make that announcement. He's not big on social media. Is he back? Just to confirm, is he back with you? Do you expect him to be there with you in the spring?
Yeah, Amari's back. He's in our program right now. Amari's just not, like you mentioned, he's not a big social media guy. He didn't want all the the videos and edits and all those type of things. He just wanted to kind of keep it low key. But he's back. And again, I just think what's really encouraging from even when we talked on the last signing day, is just we continue to build this program by getting good people to choose Miami. And, better Hurricanes were made by getting better Hurricanes. And whether it's the recruits, whether it's the staff, whether it's our players choosing to come back, to me, that's the most humbling thing for me in my position, that we keep getting really, really good people to want to be a part of what we're doing here.
Next, we'll go to Gary Furman from Canesport. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, how are you? Congratulations on all these recent moves. Can you talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball now? What you're looking to accomplish by taking over the play calling duties, what the relationship's going to be with Bob Shoop, obviously very experienced guy who's game planned a lot of games and that sort of thing. Is the plan for him to be on the headset with you during games? Just what kind of role is he going to have in the program?
Well, I'll talk specifically about Bob first. Bob and I have been really good friends going back to when I was at Middle Tennessee and Bob was at William and Mary. And we found out very early on that philosophically that we're aligned a lot the same way in terms of the way we like to attack up front, a lot of our coverage concepts. We've always stayed in great contact. He kind of always had a goal to one day be able to work with each other, and certainly we had an opportunity that presented where we could bring him on our staff this year. And Bob is going to help us by, through his experience, kind of being able to look at us from that 30,000-foot viewpoint. Another set of eyes in terms of what we're doing. Maybe seeing us the way, through self-scout, seeing us the way that others, see us during the course of the week in and week out. And then Bob will be able to work a week ahead of us as well. So when we're playing somebody, Bob can be on, basically game planning somebody a week ahead. So when we sit down on a Sunday night or a Monday morning in front of a new opponent, instead of, really having to learn everything in real time or based off of our last, encounters with that team, Bob's going to sit down and sort of fill in a lot of the blanks, which that just puts you so far ahead on any given week. So delighted for Bob, the person, to join our program, and obviously Bob is the coach the same way. And then that's part of the way our whole staff is built. We've got great experience on our staff, but it's still important that we're that at our core of who we are, and some of the attack front principles that have always been true to Miami. I think that's why Jess Simpson and understanding our front play, which was so good in the year 2018. Because it doesn't matter, it's not fantasy football. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be, together. And I think we've got great unity with our staff, and just excited to. We've already been at it for the last couple of weeks in the film room, and we'll stay at it the rest of the month of February.
Next up, we've got David Furones from the Sun Sentinel. David, go ahead.
Hi, Manny. I wanted to ask about your decision to run the defense and to go without someone that has that defensive coordinator label. How will it work? You said you'd call plays. Will you also take on other DC duties like game plan, or will that be split among other coaches? And also, will your greater responsibility there impact how much you can oversee what's going on with offense and special teams?
Well, part of my decision first of all, let me answer the first part of your question first. I'm going to be the defensive coordinator, and what I've done as defensive coordinator is what I'm going to do. Now, I've got some great guys on the staff that I can certainly delegate some things to, but for this to work, I've got to be able to go all in. Now, I feel good about the fact that I can for a couple of reasons. One, we've got a very experienced football team. We've got a team that knows me very well. So there's not a concern of an offense-defensive divide that all of a sudden you're only that guy, you're only the head coach for those guys on one side of the ball, which I think would have been the case if I'd have done this from the jump. With a guy like Rhett Lashley, who can certainly, has done a great job with our offense, not just schematically, but handling that side of the ball and leading them, and in our offensive leadership with De'Eric. So many of the players that have come back, that they understand. We just have a team that understands. And then the key move for me is Todd Stroud, as basically a senior assistant, and his expertise and being able to handle some of the administrative things and make sure the program is up and running well. But I feel like after 2 years, we've got a lot of the infrastructure on the inside in place and built. And as I've always said this, the way we play defense at the University of Miami is my responsibility. And the whole program is my responsibility, but defensively for certain. And I'm accountable for it, and I'm going to fix it.
Also on that same front, just want to ask, is there one common thread that you can point to with your new defensive coaches, either new or promoted, whatever the case may be, that makes up an identity of what this defense will be?
An identity in terms of how we play on the field, or an identity in terms of just who they are? I'm trying to figure out what you're asking, David.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Just is there something in their personality, any traits that you feel they all represent in unison that you want to get through to your players?
Well, I mean, I certainly, just being in a room, their enthusiasm is obvious. I would say attention to detail and accountability are two things that really stand out. These are some of more of the nuanced things. I mean, how do you see that on the field of play? But you can, it's one of those things that's hard to say, oh, there's that attention to detail, but you feel it, and maybe not understand the why. So like I said, they're all really good teachers, been exposed to a lot of great places, great defensive minds, great thoughts. But more than anything, I think they've got great ability to connect with the players, which is ultimately what it's about. And great defense is, as we told them this morning, great defense is about great trust. You've got to believe that the guy next to you is doing his job as hard as he can. And I think that starts by having, that great trust on the staff and that great attention to detail and accountability.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll go to David Lake from 24/7. David, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, just had more housekeeping questions, I guess. If you could provide an update on how things are with Avante Williams, Isaiah Walker, and Al Blades. Do you think they'll be able to go in the spring?
Avante, we're still waiting. He's got an appointment that'll come up here in the next few weeks. We'll find out more. The same thing is true with Al, in terms of him getting his clearance. And with Isaiah, right now we'd expect that Isaiah should be available for the spring.
And then you mentioned N'Kosi Perry not going to transfer in May. Is it safe to assume he's not participating in spring with you guys?
That's right. I think that's a cool story, by the way. I think the fact that N'Kosi wanted to graduate from the University of Miami was only 9 hours away from doing it. And as you may or may not know, universities have certain residency laws where if you want to transfer universities, you have to do the final 30 to 45 hours, depending on the school, on their campus. And so he just didn't feel like moving the the sort of the game piece back that far. So I think that's putting education first, which I think we need to applaud. N'Kosi Perry is a University of Miami success story for coming here and getting his degree, and he's going to have a great opportunity, I'm sure, to go somewhere after graduation and continue his career.
Then if I could sneak another one in, just big picture wise, I wanted your thoughts on why it seems more commonplace for if a head coach is going to be a play caller, it's on the offensive side. Do you have any theories as to why that is? It seems to be more common for an offensive head coach to be the play caller than a defensive one.
There's probably a lot more offensive head coaches. So first and foremost, that's probably part of that reason. And then and beyond that, no, I don't know. Maybe it's just those guys want to, you have to remember at times why you became the head coach and why you got to become the head coach. And I've leaned on coaches. I'm calling different coaches, head coaches throughout the spring, who have made similar decisions and asked them some of the nuances about, practice and meetings and games, and just to make sure, that I can learn. Oh, hey, listen, I can learn from different mistakes and their experiences. So I'm fired up to do it.
Next, we'll go to Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Diaz. I know it's signing day, and you guys obviously aren't signing anybody new, but I'm going to make it a recruiting question. In what ways has your evaluation and pursuit of recruits maybe changed from when you first started coaching until now? And what do you consider maybe your best personal recruiting victories and why?
when you talk about how the evaluations have changed, you mean like in a COVID year, or you mean just like through the years?
Yeah,
Like,
through the years until now. Maybe some ways that, you've recruited differently from when you started, and what you've learned. Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, the most dramatic change in 20 years is the speed in which the evaluations come. I mean, meaning, how early the recruiting process started. I mean, recruiting used to be a 6-month process at times. I mean, you'd go out in May of the junior year and find out who the players were. I remember Penn State in the 90s would offer players at their summer camp, and everybody thought they were mad to be offering it. That was like insanely early to offer somebody summer camp before your senior year. That sounds absurd right now, because there will be times now that if you haven't offered a sophomore and you're the last one to the offering party as a sophomore, it's crazy. So you're offering on a lot less information at times. As a result, the evaluation process and the recruiting process now takes a lot longer period of time. So it is so different now. I remember, even back my start at Florida State, recruiting against the University of Miami, even when I was at NC State. And I mean, there were great players, I can tell you, that I remember getting their scholarship offer on the last official visit weekend before signing day. It had been last weekend, and they didn't even have an offer. And there's some guys whose names hang on banners in this building who only had 1 or 2 or 3 offers. And that's the access to video. I mean, you had to fly to a high school, usually with a bag of video VHS tapes, and hand that to a high school coach who had to make a copy of a game tape, put it back in the self-addressed stamped envelope you left him with, and put that in the mail and mail it back to your building. So in so many ways, it's so much more streamlined now. There's a lot more information available, but for everybody, because the kids were exposed to a lot more. The unofficial visits is a thing that hardly even existed back then, and now it's almost turned into the official visit. So recruiting, like I said, it looks the same, in the fact that there's still a signing class, but there's almost no comparison to what it was like 20 years ago. The second part of your question, just in terms of recruiting victories.
Yeah, I guess from your 20 years of doing this, is there one that you kind of take the most pride in? Hey, this is a kid that we maybe had no shot at, and we were able to convince them or flip them. Just your best personal recruiting victory. I was going to ask all your assistant coaches that today.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hate to single out one, but sometimes I think the best victories are the ones where it's the victory in evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's seeing Greg Rousseau as a first-round draft choice, without knowing what even position he could play. I think that's the coolest part. I think it's being able to trust your evaluation, not worrying at times about what the recruiting ranking circus says. No judgment there, but just but to prove that what a player looks like, and then can develop him to be a player. So I look at that part. The other part, in terms of actually just sort of rolling up the sleeves and getting to the wars, because I'll be very honest, sometimes that changes based off of the logo on your shirt, or I mean there could be other circumstances in the background. So but I know this. I know that I'm very proud of our staff and our recruiting efforts over the last 2 years, and I think that's really helping to improve our football team, and we're just getting started. I think that's the benefits of that are going to be the foundation of this program.
All right, next we'll go to Barry Jackson from the Herald. Barry, go ahead.
Hi, Manny. 2 things. The first thing is, if an intriguing player should surface in the portal, for example, a linebacker who you think would upgrade you, is there any mechanism you would have at this point to add a player, even if you have additional players leave the program?
Well, okay, that's the point I started off on. So is that if you don't get a new initial, scholarships, you can't add another player. And that's where everybody's going to be either capped out, or you may have some teams that, there are some teams that got their butt kicked in December recruiting. And so they've got a lot of scholarships where they can take guys now because they just struck out on all the high school kids, first time through. So that's a little bit of the nuance in terms of how you try to add somebody to your roster, without having to try to count them forward towards next year's. And there's some stipulations coming that in terms of how that's able to work. But yeah, it puts you in a spot where it's difficult to add players. And that's why I say if we're not at 85, I know there's some other programs that are way below the 85 number because they've had massive attrition. And the trick is you'll never have a chance to get back to 85, right? Because once you're below, and if you lose a bunch of, lose 20 seniors and you're already below 25, it's never going to get you back whole.
And my one other question, Manny, was can you realistically have 12 scholarship receivers compete on the practice field in August? Is that manageable? Is it too many? And then my other receiver question is this. There are some guys on your team, like Will Mallory at tight end, who can go in expecting to play if they do the right thing, if they stay out of trouble. Do you have any receiver among the 12 other than potentially Harley who can go into this offseason thinking I'm likely going to play, or is it a totally clean slate where not a single one of them other than maybe Harley has any sort of advantage going in?
Okay, so the first part of your question, yes, you can play with 12 at wide receiver. That's what we want. Because for us to go at the tempo that we want to play at, we want to have guys that we can roll in. We can get into different personnel groups with 4 wideouts in the game, even 5 wideouts in the game. But for us to be able to put the foot on the gas and really push the tempo the way we want to, we don't want to play with 3 or 4. We want to have some depth. You look at us a year ago, we had, 3 older guys. We had Peyton, who was in and out of the lineup, seems like all year with different types of quarantines. And then we had a bunch of freshmen that were learning on a year when they didn't have spring and didn't have summer. So it's very difficult for freshmen to break into the team. So we're excited about having depth. And then that's going to tie in the second part of your question, which is competition. And I'd rather pull back and on that statement where the whole football team should think that right now we're in a great competition this spring because we have so much depth back. The last thing we would want is to say, okay, we've got all this experience back. You guys just put your feet up all off season and we'll just kind of get the young guys ready for the following year. That's crazy. The whole idea is we don't want anyone in the program feeling comfortable. We want everyone to raise their level. And so whether you've, caught all the balls that Mike Harley did, or you're a new guy, one of the new talented receivers we have coming in, hey, it's all there to play for. And I think just off the first 2 or 3 weeks of our off-season program, I think the team has that mentality. I think they feel it, that we have really earned nothing.
Thanks, Manny.
Next, we'll go to Gabby Uratia from 24/7. Gabby, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I just wanted to, you guys weren't able to see a lot of your early enrollees, a lot of the guys that you guys signed basically all of last year, I guess, the early enrollees until they got on your campus. Just pretty much wanted to get an idea of just your impressions of them, physically. Was there anyone that kind of impressed you that maybe looked bigger than you thought they might have been, or just anything along those lines?
Yeah, it's hard to answer that question because, to your point, it is weird to have not seen somebody for a while. But and right now, all they're doing is they're just lifting weights and going to class and study hall and to the training table and those type of things. So, no, there's no, oh my gosh, this guy, that guy, whatever. We're just happy they're here, and we haven't, they haven't even done a mat drill or anything yet where you even see anybody move around. So right now it's, we just got to start step by step. Right now we're mastering the art of being on time, showing up, and giving your best while you're there, and that's what they're learning right now.
Next, we'll go to Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald. Susan, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. Why specifically did you make a change in cornerback coaches? What weren't you satisfied with before? And I wanted to know Mike Rump's role now.
Yeah, so basically Mike and DVD in essence switched spots. Mike has some real strong suits, and no one cared for the University of Miami more than Mike Rump. When the dead period ends and people can come back on campus, and you're always looking for people to learn about UM and go through the campus and understand where what's what and whatever and talk with the parents and all those type of things. Mike is fantastic at all of those things. Simply put, just what we felt like DVD could do is just the nuances of closing in recruiting, because that's obviously been a factor, and that's a different skill set. It just is, and that's part of my responsibility. And I think it's important that it's not an indictment versus one thing or one person or the other. My job is to make sure that everybody's in the right seat on the bus, and it's important that Mike Rump knows that he's valued in this program, and he should be for what he's done for this school and this university as a player and as a coach. But from where I was and evaluating the people that had my building, DeMarcus Van Dyke was showing that his value could be better maximized as one of the on-the-field coaches. And conversely, we could still get a lot out of Mike in the role that he's in as off the field, working the phones, and again, being an important figure when recruits are on campus. So they're not the same skill set. And again, what my job is to make sure everybody's got the job that's closest to maximizing their skill set. So I'm excited for Mike in his role. I think he'll provide great value for us, and DVD was ready. And then how fantastic that he's got a guy like Travis Robinson to work with. Great experience. The two of them will work great together. And I think it's going to have a profound impact on our secondary.
And thank you, Manny. And then the other thing is, I wanted to know specifically, I think I know, but when spring practice begins, when, so fans can know, when is the spring game, and is it open to the public? Is it open to the media as far as practices and stuff like that with COVID still going on? What's the situation with that?
Yeah, we're going to wait to make any of those announcements. And even when our spring practice ends, may still be in a little bit in doubt. We're still waiting to find out if the dead period is lifted on April 15th or not. So we have time, and we're going to take, as what we've learned in the past 12 months, if we have time to make a decision, we're going to take our time. But whether fans, media, anybody, anything, the answer for that right now is I don't know.
It starts March 13th? Yeah?
That's correct.
It starts. Yes. That's what I thought. Okay, and one other thing, Manny. Do you, with COVID still here, will there be any opportunities? I'm not sure if I asked you this already, to get the players vaccinated. I thought maybe there's some kind of special program with student athletes and coaches, or I don't know, to try to get everybody vaccinated on your team.
That's going to go through the university and our medical people on campus who've done a great job of getting us everything we needed just to have a football season, which was not guaranteed last summer. So whether that's starting with campus administration, faculty, coaches, ultimately the general student body, the student athletes, the ones in season, the ones like us that are out of season, we will rely on their plan for all of that, and then go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, we got time for two more. We'll go to David Wilson from the Herald. David, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, you touched on it talking about DVD and obviously what he brings to you as a recruiter. I think it's pretty noticeable that he has a reputation as a very good recruiter behind the scenes. Obviously, Travis Robinson has a good reputation there as well. Did you kind of feel like in the secondary that was just something you guys really needed, a different maybe to improve your recruiting efforts there? It seemed like that was a clear, from the outside, it seemed pretty clear you made that an emphasis point in those hires.
Well, I would say we lost a phenomenal recruiter in Ephraim Banda. I mean, the safeties we've signed in the last few years have been terrific. But look, the name of the game is recruiting, right? You have to recruit your way to survive in college football right now. So, I already talked through the thought process of maximizing, Mike and DVD's skill sets at this point. But when you have an opportunity to bring a guy like T-Rob into your program, not just for what we talked about in terms of, his ability as a football coach and his experience as a coordinator, but also for what he has done in recruiting. And then again, a local guy, right? A guy that's from here that understands the pride that, that this city has for its football team. And he's always seen it from the outside, and to now, put that U on his chest. And I know for him is very special. For Travis Williams, I know it's very special for him because he's so excited to work with our linebackers, and then to add Jess Simpson and Jonathan Packey, and Jonathan did a phenomenal job with our special teams last year. Basically coaching two All-Americans. So we feel like, again, I feel like this defensive staff and the mixture of they're on the field teaching, and then they're off the field recruiting. I think we've, I'm very excited. I'm excited to come to work every day. Those guys are going to inspire me to bring my best every day, because there's some high energy guys that are very diligent, and they know what's going on.
And we'll wrap up with Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, go ahead.
Thanks. Hey, Manny, I'm wondering if how different your role will be, if it will be any different on game day. I know when you have messages for the defense as the DC, when you have messages for the DC, obviously your back's not going to be to the field the whole time the offense is on the field. Will those be spread out between the position coaches? Will be a certain person who was delegated to give those messages? How will that work as the defensive coordinator and head coach during a game?
Yeah, I think Tom, that's something that'll sort itself out between now and game day. And that's part of why, some of the feedback that I've been getting from some other defensive head coaches around the country. And, but I think back to my experience as a defensive coordinator and what I was doing in between drives, but certainly I am still the head coach at the University of Miami. So I am responsible for understanding what's going on, whether it's a special teams down or when we have the ball in offense, and any of the decision-making that has to go on there. So I think that still is the advantage, though. We've got a staff of guys that it's so important. And our last staff had the same thing too, is we have guys that we are all on the same page. We can all communicate. We're all speaking the same language. So that the messaging to the players is consistent. And if there's something on game day that we need to adjust and fix, which I think we, pride ourselves in always doing a good job of that in the past, that we can make those corrections in a timely manner to not have to wait till halftime and get fixed what needs to get fixed. I mean, that's ultimately what coaching is. On game day, you're in the fix it business, and I take a lot of pride in that, and I know our guys and our staff will as well, and that's part of why we have the experience we have there.